Hey guys, this is Jake White, co-host Signal 51 Chronicles, coming to you via a remote conversation that we're having today with Chasen and Helen Capehart. You guys can tune in. You guys can find us, Signal 51 Chronicles, on all of your podcast platforms, YouTube, Spotify, you name it. We're there. We're under the umbrella of Sunset Lounge DFW. Today, we're coming to you with a little bit of bonus content regarding the story that we're about to release, a murder in Lake Bridgeport, Texas, Wise County, Texas. With us today, we have Chasen and Helen Capehart. Guys, I appreciate you taking time on a Sunday, late afternoon, to join us. And so we can kind of get your side of the story on this story that we really spent a lot of time kind of digging into. So appreciate you guys being here. What we're going to do is I've got a bunch of questions, kind of a Q&A. There's those questions, though, will inevitably lead to spin-off questions. Anytime you guys have a question or want to know some information, by all means, ask me. I think we're pretty well versed in the story. We weren't there, though. We weren't investigating it, but I think we know a lot of facts about it. So what I want to do is get started. Like I said, you guys are Chasen and Helen Capehart. Can you guys kind of give us a little bit of background on why we would have you guys on the Signal 51 Chronicles?
Well, I mean, we were neighbors, of course, to the victim, Lauren Whitener, and I mean, it was before we had kids, is when it was just me and Helen. We were living happily, transplants to the Bridgeport area. And we were, I guess lucky to live next to Helen and her roommate at the time. Lauren, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so a little bit of background geography-wise. So Lake Bridgeport, Texas, small community in Wise County, Texas. So a little bit, maybe about an hour northwest of downtown Fort Worth, which is where we're coming from today as we speak. Again, small community. Lake Bridgeport in and of itself, less than population of around 300 people, very small geographic area. So small they don't have their own police department. They had a volunteer fire department. I think we'll kind of cover some of that today. How long did you guys, or when did you guys move to the duplex on North Main Street in Lake Bridgeport?
We moved there in July of 2018.
Okay. Did you guys stay in that same duplex the entire time? I guess you guys would have been at 640 North Main Street, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can you guys kind of give us a little bit of background? Describe how you knew Lauren. Describe Lauren to us, and from your perspective.
Well, we really just knew her as being a neighbor and a conjoined neighbor. So her and her roommate and their children were in the conjoining duplex, I would say, is that north of us?
Yeah.
Yeah, the duplex north of us. And so while we didn't necessarily have a ton of interactions, as in like dinners or lunches or get-togethers or things like that, but we knew her and her neighbor as very her and her roommate is very friendly, outgoing personalities, happy to help you with whatever you need.
They we would come home from work,
yeah,
and they would always, if weather permitted, they'd be outside doing whatever, having sitting on the porch talking. I think she did smoke cigarettes, so she would sit outside and smoke, and we'd always come home, hey, how are you? And then she's always just cheerful and pretty much in a good mood most of the time, and just kind of a howdy neighbor mentality all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to focus on is really a period between starting July 3rd of 2019. And it's going to progress all the way maybe around September, October, November of 2019. So we're talking 4th of July, right? We're close to a lake. By certain accounts, it seemed as if North Main Street had somewhat of a party block party kind of vibe to it leading up to the 4th of July. Does that sound about right, or was it pretty normal?
Well, I mean, there were people. The boat ramps were very close. They were very. They weren't very far. So there are a lot of times the party boats would drive by. And, that happened a lot. And there was also a very rural country. The neighbors were very just go out and drink in their front yard kind of thing. But then there were $1 million homes right next door also. So there was kind of a healthy mix of parties out on the lake, along the lake, but the access to the lake was nearby. So we saw that traffic regularly, but it was also a rowdy type of bunch of people who they would, barbecue and drink right there in their front yard down the street,
Yeah. So I want to go to July 4th. It seemed to be a pretty typical 4th of July celebration wise, from what we could tell in terms of the environment. Like I said, obviously by a lake. Do you guys remember about what time you guys went to bed on July 4th of 2019?
I would say no later than 10:30.
Yeah, she was 8 months pregnant, so she was quite tired, I'm sure. And we had been hearing the commotion throughout the week, and so I was working I'm working in retail, and so the holiday weeks are very busy for me. So I was ready to go to bed probably around, I say same time as her. I mean, we both went to bed just like you said, like
I'd say no later than 10:30.
It was definitely dark outside for sure in the middle of July. So,
do you guys remember did anything stand out on the 4th of July during the day? Like, throughout the day, do you got like any kind of, just anything that would stand out to you?
Not necessarily anything that would stand out. The biggest issue that I had was that there was some and that's the funny thing I would say about our duplexes is that, like I mentioned before, she had a roommate and they had children. They each had a child and they had dogs. And you would think by being conjoining duplex neighbors that you would hear what's going on the other side. And honestly, except for maybe a random door or things like that, we didn't really hear anything, which was great because that meant it was kind of private, which was nice. It didn't feel like we were like in an apartment setting where you can hear every step and crook and door and things like that. So really, we wouldn't hear anything unless things were happening outside.
Through the window.
Like if anyone had to be outside for you to necessarily hear anything in your duplex, at least for us. And the biggest issue I had was that there was lots of arguing and things going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And for me, I distinctly remember telling Chasen, I was like, if this does not stop by like the next 10, 15 minutes, and this is roughly 10 o'clock, and it's probably being a little, I wouldn't say snooty, but like, hey, it's 10 o'clock. Like, people have jobs. Like, we need to go home, go to bed, go do your thing. But I was like, golly, this needs to stop. Like, whatever's going on, they need to just cool it, go to bed, deal with it.
And they being Lauren and the Maxwell couple, they were arguing.
Well, yes. But short answer, that was probably the biggest issue, is that there was just some arguing and commotion going back and forth. I mean, they were going from this duplex, going back to that duplex, this duplex, that duplex.
In front of our windows, so it was just windows were out here, and you would hear work talking just back and forth as they would, come in front of the windows and stuff.
Yeah, and I'll kind of set the scene here in a second on the, how we're describing the duplexes, so that way people can understand. We're going to have some images and things like that up to where people can see it, but we'll describe that in a second. Chasen, obviously I spoke to you yesterday. Do you remember what time you woke up on July 5th?
Yeah, I can't remember precisely, but it was at least after 2 a.m. to, between 2 and 4 a.m. is how way I describe it most. But most likely, I think it was between 2 and 3 in the morning, and it was just pitch black outside.
What caused you to wake up?
The smell of smoke. I grew up in the country, so I remember distinctly the smell of burning plastic. So I knew that the difference, from that between burning wood or whatnot, and so I knew that was bad. That was like artificial petroleum, something burning, and so I jumped out of bed. And of course, my wife being pregnant, my my attention was to her safety, of course, because I was like, it's not good, and
Yeah. Obviously thought you were having a bad dream.
yeah.
Like, because he shot up. And I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And so I kind of just waited to kind of see what's going on. But fortunately, you did. And
Yeah.
fortunately, you were like, something's wrong. And this is like, I noticed something's happening.
So you wake up to the smell of what you assume to be burning plastic. What did you do once you got up? Do you remember?
Well,
like,
I immediately grabbed a flashlight, went outside. My first assumption was maybe a firework had landed on the shingles of the roof, and maybe that was what was causing it. So I went outside, and of course, where we were is very windy. Being on the side of the lake, where you were getting just drafts of constant wind, and I walk outside, and I smell nothing. There's fresh air, no smoke. I go all the way around the duplex and smell nothing. So I come back inside thinking maybe I'm imagining things, and then I go and I can smell it again, of course, strongly. So I have her like, hey, this is not good for a pregnant woman to be breathing in. So I said, let's sit in the front of the front porch and figure this out. And so I started to just deduce, well, if it's not in our house, then it must be coming from next door that was connected. And that's when me and Helen both started checking windows. And
Well, before that, we checked the inside to make sure there wasn't something happening in the home.
yeah.
And I was in the nursery. I went back to the
Oh,
nursery.
right.
Yes, I went back to the nursery, and I could hear in the nursery a faint smoke alarm sound. And again, us being connected to each other, there's no way that we had not normally heard things. So I was like, something's going, like...
So you pretty much have to put your ear to the wall and that dividing wall to really hear it.
Yeah, and it was very, very faint. So we went outside. We went straight over to there. We could see that the windows were this dark charcoal gray color. You could not see on the inside. And you could kind of feel like they were warmer comparative to ours. And so that was an immediate, hey, we need to call the fire department. And that's what we did. Was it 911 that we called?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and they connected us to the volunteer fire department.
Kind of tell me what happened. So you called the fire department. Walk me through that call. Like how did that go?
Well, they were very hesitant because it was the night after the 5th. They thought, oh, you're going to smell residual fireworks and stuff like that. And so there was kind of like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you're? Because do you see fire? Like, I remember the dispatch distinctly being like, well, do you even see it? I said, no, I don't see it, but I smell it. And I was like, I smell smoke, and just please have somebody come out here. And I was getting I remember being frustrated with, like, I'm not, bullshitting. I'm just trying to, I smell it. Please come out. And because they had, the attitude I was receiving was it's probably nothing kind of mentality. And then when the young man came in a volunteer fire department, he was probably 19, 20, decent attitude. He wasn't giving me any attitude or anything like that. He's like, okay, what are you talking about? And I pointed. I said, we think it's coming from there because we can hear the smoke detector and we can see soot. And he showed the light to the window, and within seconds was like, yep, there's definitely something on fire in there. And he radioed for whoever to come and look.
How long did it take for the other? I mean, again, we're talking Lake Bridgeport, so we got a volunteer fire department. You might have a emergency service district that responds later, but how long did it take for the other fire department personnel to show up after the first one arrived?
I want to say no more than 20 minutes.
Okay. Do you remember when they Do you remember how they made entry into Lauren's duplex?
I remember they didn't go into the house for a while, and I say a while. I was sitting there waiting for them to open it. Like I remember looking at it like, why are you not going in? And it's because they figured out that the back door had been unlocked and they were going in there and to figure everything out. And that part didn't see, but I was told later. And they made entry that way, and then when I think somebody discovered her body, and then that's when everything changed. And I remember seeing one of the state troopers attempting to kick the front door down open, and a fireman yelling at the troopers saying, "Stop kicking that door." And they had to like come to an agreement and to talk about something, and then they went off and stopped. And then I think within 10 minutes they unlocked the door from the other side, and it just went just lit up the front yard, just like headlights basically. And and that was not, I don't know, 30 minutes since that.
So you knew pretty quickly that Lauren was inside after the fire department made entry?
No, we knew her car was there because we saw it in the driveway, and we were hoping she wasn't. So other than that, because my first thought was she had fallen asleep with a cigarette on the couch, and she just basically died of smoke inhalation, and hoping, and that's what I kept telling myself is maybe that's what it was, because the couch was what I knew, her couch was right there, and that's what just lit up from being on fire. And but I didn't really know anything until they told us hours later.
Okay. So the fire department's there. I mean, this fire, it's not like a raging inferno by any means, is it?
No, you did not see the fire outside of the home in any shape or form until doors were opened and oxygen was able to get into the premises.
Right. Okay. What I want to introduce a couple people that we've talked about them briefly, but Rodney Eric Maxwell, he goes by Eric, and Ashley Hill were some nearby neighbors of yours. In fact, they lived in the duplex. If you're facing your duplex, they would have lived into the building, the duplex to the left of you, correct?
Yes, if you were facing the duplex, it would be the detached one on the left. Yeah.
So theirs was 660 North Main. So we have, to kind of set it up, we have the first duplex, which is basically where you guys are at. Lauren lived in 620. You guys lived in 640. That's under one roof. There looked to be about like a 25-foot-ish common area separating yours from Maxwell and Hill's duplex, right? Does that sound about right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Can you kind of describe them as you knew them?
Well, the first impression that me and Helen had was they seemed a little shy. They seemed like, okay, they had kids. They were cute kids. They were pretty well behaved kids at first, from our first impression, of course. And I don't know how long they'd been living there before we had moved. Not very long, but they invited us to even a Halloween party. And me and Helen decided, what the heck, we try and meet people. And of course I went, we went there with just open minds, hoping to just get to know people. and they were very accommodating, but they were very much a whatever it takes to have a good time. They were unashamed to do that, which usually meant drinking and smoking pot and just having kind of like what you get in the high school vibe, but they were in their late 20s and 30s, and but for the most part they were very sweet people. They were just same kind of thing, high neighbor. We talked to them a couple times in passing through the first few months, and then as time went by, when Helen got pregnant, we would walk up and down the street to, of course, help with her health and the baby growth and all that good stuff. And we would get to know her kids because they would come out and say, "Hey, can we walk with you?" Mm-hmm. And we were like, "Yeah, sure." And so we would just get to talk to them, hey, because she's a teacher and she was very good with kids, and so she would just kind of talk to them and talk to the girl and hey, how was your day and that kind of thing. And then the boy, he's a rambunctious, rebellious kid. Their youngest or their oldest kid, I mean. So you kind of got the vibe that they were decent parents, but then there were a couple times where they were left alone. We didn't realize that the kids were left alone, and that happened at least twice that I can remember, and we had to make way to find out, hey, where are your parents, and I don't even remember what came of it. We were just so frustrated with it, like we even stopped walking because we didn't want to be caught in the middle of that. But I think it was one of the grandparents became kind of babysitter for him eventually, but they started becoming absent.
Okay.
I think more and more.
And could you tell if Lauren friends with Eric and Ashley? Just like kind of initially, we'll
Well,
kind of get
not initially, because I will say it's because the distance between the front porch and Eric and Ashley's house. I actually took some of these boulders and made steps so that nobody would trip, because the traffic between the two houses were becoming so frequent. I actually made it to where nobody would fall and hurt themselves. So it was kind of just this constant. I
would say more of the kid. Like our initial introduction would be like
the kids.
The kids were playing together and hanging out and involved with each other. And so that was a positive thing, because we're like, okay, so there's kids around, there's parents, like everybody seems cool. To answer your question, I would say no, not initially did we see any more interaction with him versus Ashley, like Eric versus Ashley. I think it was the same. I would even say still now that, to my recollection, Ashley hung out with Lauren way more than Eric did.
When did
or not? I mean, at least from our point of view.
Kind of time frame, you guys moved in July of 2018, so almost 1 year prior to a year prior to what we're talking about. Do you remember when you started to notice that, hey, Lauren is friendly or knows Ashley and Eric? Do you remember about when that would have started? Aside from
your question, it broke up just a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Do you remember? So you guys moved in about one year prior. Mm-hmm. Do you remember about when you started to notice that, hey, Lauren, Ashley, and Eric at least know each other, or at least friendly with each other?
Well, no, not long.
I would say from the get-go, like it was.
Like we knew they knew.
Yes, platonically, like that. It was very. From the get-go, they were all cool with each other. The kids would go over to their house. They would all be in one apartment or one duplex or the other, or on the porch. Like it wasn't a their friendship was already established when we moved in.
Well, and I know for a fact that we saw a lot of it outdoors more than anything because if I remember Lauren's roommate, she was very much, I don't want smoking in the duplex, so y'all have to do all your talking and smoking outside, and that's why they were always usually collected on one of their porches regularly.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I want to go to July 3rd of 2019, kind of jumping around a little bit, but on July 3rd of 2019, one thing that we learned was that Lauren spent the day, it was Lauren, a male friend of Lauren's who we don't know the identity of that person, spent the day with Eric and Ashley at their duplex. In fact, they even reportedly stayed the night at Eric and Ashley's duplex. The next day being July 4th, the male friend woke up and left at around noon that day. Do you guys know anything about that or who that?
I don't know who it is, but I do remember there being a black sedan. I can't, at this point, 6 years, I can't remember what model or make it was. I know that I communicated that to the detectives that we spoke to, but I noticed that there was a gentleman with a black vehicle, and it had parked a couple of times. Sometimes it was parked in front of Lauren's home, and then at one point it was parked then in front of Eric and Ashley's home. But to tell you who it is, have no idea.
No clue, yeah. Okay.
And if it was the same person that we're even thinking of.
Right, sure. Was it common for Lauren to have people over at her place?
No.
Not to my recollection, no.
Well, she would have a different boyfriend within a few weeks of each other sometimes, but she never would just have a person after person after person. But no, yeah, I didn't know her to have complete strangers over at all.
Most of the guys that would come over, just based on what you guys can recall, were you ever suspicious of any of them, or did you guys ever think anything about any of the ones that ever came over there?
Just that one.
Yeah.
That one was weird to me. I mean, I and probably me being nosy, but again, I was nosy because it felt odd. Something was weird about this. Just trying to figure out who that person was and why are they going back and forth between the home. But other than that, no, the previous boyfriend that she had, he seemed really, really nice. Got along with her roommate to our knowledge. Got along with her kid to our knowledge. If there was interactions with them, I mean, they seemed fine. This was a random situation. Like whoever this was a random situation to my understanding.
Do you know if she ever had a boyfriend that maybe lived in the Austin area or would go back and forth to the Austin area?
I think the one that was with her prior, he really liked her and I think was even considering moving up here or up there to be closer to her. But I think she had other ideas and because she had been with him, I think, for a good few months or something. I don't recall totally, but I remember he was around a lot, and he would come up to visit on work, I think, and then
and poof, he's gone.
And then just randomly, here's this different guy, and you're just like, man, I can't keep up,
Right.
So,
do you know what kind of car that guy drove that you were talking about?
The gentleman from the third? Or the other?
No, the other one.
The boyfriend that I remember was in, I believe it was a blue truck.
Okay.
I believe it was a blue truck. Again, this was 6 years ago.
Yeah,
and that's
a long time ago.
That's one of those details that kind of leave your memory.
Yeah. Okay, let me fast forward to July 5th. So fire department's there. They put the fire out, or the love seat and mattress. Do you know, did you guys see them remove Lauren's body or anything of the sorts?
Did they remove her body?
Did you guys see them remove her body?
Yes. They removed her body on a stretcher.
Okay.
I do remember that, and it was, her body was in a bag.
Okay.
I believe one of their dogs was also in there, and I believe the dog had passed away too.
Yeah. And so you guys kind of described, I mean, you lived next to her for a year. Very seldom you would hear any. I mean, again, we're talking about drywall separating the two units. Very seldom
Absolutely.
you ever heard anything, right?
Yes,
Doors
and
closing.
again, that's wild to me because not only were there two females, they both each had a younger child who, as you can tell, children are loud and make noise and things, and they also each had a dog. And so the fact that we didn't hear anything, I really never heard anything, was crazy to me, but I appreciated that being a tenant because it was a much different situation than living in an apartment where you can hear everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You get it from up, down, side, and all that.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So after the fire department leaves, they remove Lauren's body. Kind of walk through what do you recall? What do you recall about the crime scene and then kind of the conversations people were having outside that day?
My remembrance was that they essentially blocked everything off. We weren't really, I don't remember them telling us we couldn't leave, but it felt like we couldn't leave until they left. We were questioned together. We were questioned separately in a vehicle, like a detective's truck. We essentially just sat in our front lawn just watching things happen, and it felt like, for me, it felt like those hours went by for years. Like it took forever. I don't think they left until after 1:00 that afternoon. So that was the first time I remember feeling like, okay, we can kind of breathe for a minute. We can go in our home. Not that they said we couldn't go in our home.
The smell.
But the smell was absolutely atrocious because at that point they had taken down the fire, so the exhaust and things like that. But also too, I just felt icky. I did not want to go in there. But essentially, the scene was very much, we just sat out. Eric, Ashley, myself, Chasen, Lauren's roommate. We just sat out there and we're just conversating and like trying to figure out, okay, why would this have happened? Who could have this been? I mean, what would cause this? Like, and just kind of talking shop about what may have occurred or who may have been over or things that had happened or why, But it just felt like time really slowed down in those few hours that we were there.
And Lauren's roommate was not home when.
No, she was actually staying at another friend's home, and I'm the one that reached out to her through Facebook because actually I didn't even have her phone number at the time. I just had her. I just had her as a friend on Facebook, and so I was messaging her and trying to call her and be like, "Hey, you need to come here. Something's happened. Like, you need to get here as soon as you can." She did. She was in her pajamas. I mean, she got here as fast as she could. Or there, I should say. She got there as fast as she could, but no, she was not in the home. Her child was not there. Lauren's child was not there. The only human in the home was Lauren.
Do you know how Eric and Ashley did Chasen? Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you go down at some point in the morning and say, "Hey, there's something that's happened"?
Yeah, like there came a point where when the firemen were doing their trying to figure out the fire, I think just basically they had to open the door. I thought, they better know, just because I had no reason to believe anything, at the time, and they basically, I went to their front door and I knocked and I was like, "Hey, y'all need to come. Like, Lauren's house is on fire," and they're like, and I remember Ashley being very much like, "What?" And I'm like, yeah. And then Eric he was in his boxers, and I think Ashley was in a gown. And the first thing that struck out was when she walked out, she's ginger, and so she was very white, but she had bruises on her arms and her legs. I mean, and she's pasty, so she had these dark brown bruises, like a Dalmatian, pretty much all over her, and they were not there the day before, and or the last time I saw her anyway. I don't remember noticing them prior that, and I immediately got like really sick to my stomach because I thought, dadgum, because it was everywhere but the face, and and I just deduced that was somebody who basically beat the crap out of her, and then Eric was making it abundantly clear that he was distraught. He was just crying and just got on his knees and put his face to the ground and was very like, oh my God, I can't, what's going on, and all that, and I even was trying to console him. I'm like, we don't know. I just know that, because they're like, is she in there? And like, I was like, well, her car's there, man. I don't know yet. And I said, but they're trying to figure something out. But and then I kind of went back and said, well, just let them alone for the minute. And they went, make sure their kids were essentially in their house and whatnot, and then but anyway, that was pretty much the interaction I had with them until we started to sit down and in the yard. We basically all started pulling lawn chairs right there out of the way, and we were all calling each other's employments and was like, hey, I'm definitely not coming and whatever, and
Yeah.
but
Let me ask, so at some point then, during that day on July 5th, you guys all spoke with Eric, Ashley, and then Lauren's roommate. What was her name again?
Jessica,
Yeah, sorry. You guys all were sitting outside, just kind of, I assume, just discussing, like, what in the world just happened?
speaking our mind, just asking the questions to each other, and a lot of times, I mean, I had my body and face was turned at the house. Like, I was not letting my eyes off of anything because I wanted to see everything that the police were doing. I was just, of course, trying to figure out what was happening as it was happening, and but at the same time, Jessica, Lauren's roommate, and the Maxwells were essentially talking amongst themselves in front of us, and essentially talking about what Jessica was like. Well, what were y'all doing yesterday? That kind of guy. And she saw there were Truly cans, empty ones all over the Maxwell's front yard, and she knows that Lauren drank them. So she's like, she hung out with y'all then. And what were y'all doing? Where's that guy? Where was the guy she was with? And it led to just kind of rebuttal, talking about their afternoon, and that was for the most of it. Just they were drinking and talking and stuff. And then one thing that really stood out for me was when Ashley and Eric both started talking about how Lauren was suicidal, because she was pretty sure she had cancer, or she was going to die of cancer. So she was probably, she very well could kill herself. And I'm thinking, even if that was true, this is not the time nor the place to be talking about that. And that's what really stuck to me as, and then what do you have to, why saying that? What does that matter right now? And that's stuff like that was coming out of their mouth. They were saying things that were deflective, And I could, I didn't like that, of course, and it was like, well, I could smell something going on, and I was just under the impression that it was maybe they had stolen or were participant in drugs they weren't supposed to be, of course, or of course they didn't want no one knowing their personal stuff, like the threesome thing, maybe. But I was still under that, like, hopefully they still didn't have nothing to do with it, because that was the last thing I wanted, was to have them be the murderers. So
Was that the first time? Did you ever suspect, or was that the very first time you ever heard that the three of them were romantically involved, I guess?
Repeat that.
Was that the first time that you heard, or did you ever suspect that the three of them were romantically involved?
Never would it.
Well, that was that at that point in time, that was where I kind of was like, oh, so that's what y'all have been doing. Because I thought it was just friends drinking, smoking, what I was seeing. But then there was the, y'all, because of that, Jessica, I asked Jessica, I was like, are you being for real? Is this true? And she's like, yeah, look at this crazy, she's talking about Ashley. She's like, look at this crazy, woman. And she showed me pictures on her phone of Ashley Hill being naked on the floor where you can't see nothing, just her back. And Lauren is just like doing this in the picture where they're obviously like, Ashley is drunk or high, and she's just there naked in front of Lauren. And so you're just like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that is some stuff that's been going on. And Jessica is just kind of, she's like, she was under the impression that whatever was going on was going to come to a stop, or come to its end, some form or fashion.
Was it Eric and Ashley that had brought up that they were all three involved, or was it Jessica who brought it up?
I think it was Jessica who brought it up to me, because I had asked Jessica what was causing so much traffic and the yelling, and then she brought it up and was telling me, just filling me in on this is what they were doing from what she could tell.
Okay, so let me ask you. Later that day, the fire department leaves. The investigators leave. Mm-hmm. Did anything happen at Lauren's side of the duplex after the investigators and fire department left?
I mean, when everybody left, I was at home, and we were at home, and if I remember correctly, Ashley and Eric walked straight into there and start like pulling stuff, like holding things. They were walking around in it, and I immediately went and was like, what are you doing? Like, they just, they hadn't been gone very long, and I looked, and Ashley had an arm with a t-shirt, and items were wrapped up in it, like as a clean shirt, items wrapped up in it. It wasn't like they were trying to steal anything or personal possessions, but it was very much they were going directly to her room to grab something and then leave.
Okay. Did you see him ever go back in there after that day?
Yeah. I think they went back again the next day. But when I went out, when I noticed, they were just kind of hands in their pockets, just kind of looking around,
Mm-hmm. When you spoke with the detectives, so one thing in the investigation, they took, they collected DNA samples from a myriad of people. Did they ever ask you guys to submit to a DNA sample?
Of ours, obviously, yes, yeah.
Okay. Did they just do a buccal swab? So basically, it's like a big Q-tip in your
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Fingerprints and
yeah, for both of
Okay.
us.
Did they ask that from everybody on the block pretty much? Do you know?
I
I
don't,
don't.
but I know that he submitted his DNA. Eric submitted his DNA willingly. I
Okay.
can't remember how I was told, but I got pretty bold, and I think I asked one of the detectives. Like, well, did he? Did he? And they were like, yeah, he gave it willingly.
Did you guys know anybody by the name of Billy Ray Thompson or Vicky Bondavi that perhaps lived in maybe the duplex next to Eric and Ashley, or maybe the building over from them?
The Billy Thompson, I think I had talked to him a little bit because they had a grill and a smoker, and I'm a butcher, so I would just try to talk to them. I'd see him using it, and I would just say, "Hey, how are you?" and kind of talk shop with them a couple times.
I think she. I think she came by after all this had occurred.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think she came by after all this occurred and just had asked some questions and was just like, "Well, I heard dub dub duh."
And we had never met her before
yeah.
at all, and so she came all the way just because of the whole ordeal, and asking us what was going on, and of course she gave us her 2 cents of all the gossip and the things she thought she saw, and of course I didn't think at the time I don't think there was anything she said that sounded accurate.
Okay. On July 12th, a restoration crew, it's a civilian company, but perhaps contracts with Wise County Sheriff's Office, came and cleaned out Lauren's duplex. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
Did you guys see did they remove anything that seemed abnormal or stood out to you?
No, you were working, so you wouldn't have seen it. And I would have been working at that time, so no. And they were there, I believe, for a couple of like it wasn't just a 1 day deal.
No, yeah, there was days and days.
It was It was at least a couple of days, but no, not to my recall. Do I remember seeing anything that was suspicious? It looked like they gutted the entire thing.
Okay. On July 16th, investigators returned. So 4 days after the crime scene was cleaned out, they returned and found what I'll call as a trail of blood from the back door of Lauren's, leading towards the Maxwell duplex. Do you remember that day by chance?
It was when it was really dark. It was night out, and they had come back with lights, and they were just in the backyard or behind the fencing of the backyard. They just lights, just walking back and forth, just a whole bunch of lights. So
I do remember that.
The next day, so the owner, Dan Matzinger, I guess he owned perhaps all of the duplex. I think there were 6 total duplex structures on North Main. I don't know if he owned all of them. I think that he did. He gave investigators a consent to search for Lawrence duplex, but it was described as 620, 640, and 660 North Main Street. It looked like that they were just focused on the exterior. Do you remember? And it was here where Barry Green was the defense attorney. I don't know if you guys ever read anything that he had. He was very vocal about this case. He was Eric's defense attorney, in fact. And he described what he coined the single blade of grass theory. And so on the 16th and 17th, they find that trail of blood. On the 17th, do you guys remember? Did you guys ever see investigators collecting any of the grass samples in that backyard area?
no, not necessarily. I just remember them walking with, like I said, the lights, and then really I never noticed anything afterwards.
At one point, they did search the Maxwell's home.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to next. So they ultimately executed 3 search warrants at Maxwell's house. So The first one, though, of significance, I'm unclear on the details on the first one. I don't even know the date, and they can't find the search warrants, or they won't release them. It's one or the other. They said they couldn't find them, so I don't know what that means. But they let me pull it up real quick. So were you guys there on July 11th was the first search of substance at the Maxwell home? Do you guys ever remember seeing investigators at that house?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was being very nosy and looking out the side window. I'll be 100% honest.
Pregnant and nosy, yes.
Well, because
Under
we
the
didn't- I wasn't
circumstances, I
there.
mean, it's. Do you remember? Did you ever? Do you remember them? Could you see them carrying anything from the Maxwell house that you could identify?
I believe a blanket, but that's all that I remember. I know, like you said, they did go a couple of times, and we had been told by this and that they had also collected this little thing and that little thing, but I personally only saw like a blanket that they had grabbed.
Do you ever remember seeing a red gas can on the front porch of the Maxwells at any point?
Yeah.
Was it there?
He used it. Well, Eric used it to fill his push mower.
Okay. Let's see. They go back on the 18th. The detectives collect more blood-related evidence at Maxwell's home. Do you guys know of anybody that went by the name of Ace?
Ace? Mm-hmm. Why does that sound familiar?
It rings a bell, but I think it was one of the friends of the Maxwells, I believe. But but no, I don't recall.
I can't put a name to a face, but that name sounds familiar.
What about anybody by the name of Gary, and his last name started with the letter M, like Mary?
They had a lot of friends that the Maxwells did, and I think one of their friends may have been Gary, but honestly, I don't know.
Okay. And Chasen, we talked about this yesterday. Investigators learned that at some point, I don't know when this was, but at some point, Lauren had. Let me get the wording so I don't want to misspeak. So at some point, Lauren had picked up what was described as a vagrant, and he would later peek in her window. This person that reported it said that Lauren also on another occasion found him in her living room and he would not leave. Does any of that seem...
No.
Do you guys know anything about that?
No, we never were told of anything like that. We were never warned of anybody. I mean, there were occasionally people walking randomly. I mean, pretty much anything that could happen on that highway behind us, it happened. And so, yeah, I mean, knowing her, she tried to be a helping hand to people, but I think Jessica, her roommate, would have probably put her foot down at that extent for sure.
Do you the information we had said that Lauren was what they described as a surgical tech or a surgical nurse. Is that accurate?
I believe it to be so. I know her and her roommate worked at the local hospital. Decatur. And to my I believe that they were at least in the medical field. Now, exactly their specialty, I'm not sure.
They did talk about surgeries, and I would listen to them on at least one occasion talk about medical procedures with a doctor and how he was like kind of rude, or they're talking about their experiences with such and such person and whatever, and so it would definitely coalesce with that statement as that's what she did.
Okay. Do you guys recall? Let's see real quick. Did Eric, after once the investigation was underway, so July 5th, all the way up until his arrest on September 6th, did you guys ever have any conversations with him in between? Not the morning of, obviously, not the morning of July 5th or the day of July 5th, but did you guys ever have any conversations with him or Ashley regarding this case in that time frame?
I mean, I did.
I chose to separate myself from them. I tried my best to not interact with them. The only interaction I had with either of them after that point was at Lauren's funeral. But I do know that. Say that again.
Can you tell me about that?
Oh yeah. So I drove. I went by myself to Lauren's funeral, and on my way out, they were standing in the parking area, and
The Maxwells.
Yes, the Maxwells. Sorry, the Maxwells were standing in the parking area and were upset that they weren't allowed to go into the funeral. Essentially, they were told you are not allowed in the premises or the property. I don't know if that was security or family, whomever it did. But I remember talking to them, and I was just like, I'm so sorry. I hate that for you. I wished it was different. And that was really about it. I tried to distance myself from them as much as possible. Especially when we started to receive information about how they were intertwined, and there's possibility of he might be charged with something or da. I do know that Ashley and her mom, is that correct?
Yeah.
They came and visited.
Ashley's mom and Eric's dad are married. So by technicality, they are step brother and sister. And so it was it was her mom and his dad, who they are a couple, came to the front door just to kind of say, hey, I'm sorry, I hope y'all are okay, I hope everything's good. Just letting you know we're leaving, we just don't want to put up with this, and started kind of pining me for information about how where we stood. And I was just like, and then the dad was like, well, he's not a killer. He wouldn't do this. I've trusted him with my life. And I looked him in the eye and I go, well, I hope that's true, because I really hope that is true. And then they kind of shut down, and Ashley said, well, we're going to get a good lawyer, and we're going to show that they're out to get us because they can't find the right person. And I go, well, I hope you're right. I hope you are innocent. And I said, we're like, we'll pray for you. We'll make sure that we hope that you're right. You're true. It's true. And then they kind of just turned around, and like the dad started kind of chiming up, getting all frustrated, and Ashley was like, no, like just stop. And they turned around and left.
So so you're saying that from what you know, Eric, because this gets confusing, Eric Maxwell's dad is married to Ashley Hill's mom.
Yes.
Eric Maxwell and Ashley Hill are what was described as common law married. I don't think that they went through like formal marriage ceremony or perhaps at the county. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. So on September 6th, Eric Maxwell was arrested on 1 count of capital murder and 2 counts of arson. In this case, you guys were the victims of the arson charge.
Right.
Yes. He was also charged for attempted capital murder for both of us and our unborn child.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So he had his bond amount was set at roughly $750,000, $750,000. He remained in custody all the way until around October of 2019. His defense attorney had highlighted some things in the investigation, and I think the was ultimately able, in essence, say, hey, judge, this bond amount's high, one, and two, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Because it seemed as if investigators, even after his arrest, were continuing to investigate other theories or possibly other suspects. Are you guys familiar with that?
I mean, I forget the detective's name, but he did call, basically asking if we had any updates, at least twice. And because every time we would sit and just rack our brains with whatever info we could pull, that we could remember. But honestly, and that was pretty much the gist of it. I mean, and then we would investigate ourselves any kind of news that we could pull up from online, and that's pretty much all we really experienced.
By a certain point, we have not been contacted or communicated with about any information. Anything that we have found out has been through our own personal efforts. I wonder if there's any updates or things like that. Yeah.
So in March of 2020, Eric he gets arrested in September. So the investigators take arrest warrants to a judge. So say, judge, this is what we believe is probable cause for the arrest of Rodney Eric Maxwell. The judge agrees, signs the arrest warrants, attaches the bond. In November of 2019, the case goes before the grand jury in Wise County, where he's indicted on the charges we just discussed. And then ultimately around March of 2020, the charges are dismissed. Were you guys ever notified when the charges were dismissed?
No.
Okay. So I want to ask you guys kind of, I'll give you kind of like a 30,000 foot view of what we know. So ultimately, we know the fire happened. Lauren Whitener was stabbed at least 18 times. Got a little kiddo coming in.
Yes.
We'll hold off for a second. And we're almost done, guys. So
Yes.
So Lauren was ultimately stabbed 18 times. The grand jury indictment suggested that that Eric Maxwell was also attempting to or did commit an act of sexual assault. Lauren's they conducted an autopsy on Lauren. They did find biological evidence. They do, and locally we call them a SANE exam. So give you background. So I retired from Fort Worth Police Department about 4 years ago. So here we call them something different, but there, I think they just called it a sexual assault kit, I believe is the term that they used. And they were able to find some biological evidence there. That evidence ultimately went to a lab in Dallas called SWIFTs. It's an acronym. It's pretty common for smaller agencies that don't have their own crime lab. SWIFT's or Wise County Sheriff's Office then consulted Pure Gold Forensics out of California to examine the evidence, and ultimately what we know, the smoke detector seemed to be a big deal for the investigators because there was 3 of them that had been removed from the ceiling and the batteries had been taken out. There was a 4th one, perhaps it was the one that you guys heard faintly, that I don't think the killers were able to, they perhaps did not know about it. And so the investigators swabbed the smoke detectors and the batteries, which were in the bathroom trash can. And the major contributor DNA-wise was Lauren Whitener, which would be consistent for somebody who lives in that house. We mentioned that they also asked DNA samples from you guys. They compared the minor contributors, and it was no match to anyone they had collected DNA from. In fact, the one that they call battery number 2 had a DNA profile that was not in CODIS, which is the national DNA database, but the Pure Gold Forensics, the scientist there was able to say, hey, this sample came from a female. So perhaps it was Lauren's roommate, right? I mean, if she lived there too, and we all know how annoying those smoke detectors get when the batteries when they start chirping, but we don't know, right? So we don't know who that came from. The trail of blood became interesting. The single blade of grass became interesting because investigators they called it a trail of blood, and we're talking from Lauren's back door to Eric Maxwell's back gate. Mm-hmm. The only thing that we know that they took is one blade of grass. That's why I asked you if you guys saw anything else being taken. That blade of grass that they took did have what they believed to be blood. It tested presumptive positive for blood. So they sent that to a lab, and it was, in fact, Lauren's blood on that single blade of grass. However, I want to going back to when Eric and Ashley went into the duplex after the crime scene had been released. Do you know if they went into the front door or back door?
All right.
Have you ever seen Eric or Ashley access Lauren's duplex from the backyard area?
Say again.
Had you ever seen Eric or Ashley access Lauren's apartment from the back door?
Well, excuse me. There was a couple times when I was in the backyard of our duplex, and I would see Eric would come out once, or twice in those instances. Excuse me. And it would just be like, oh, he was doing like some kind of service for her, and he was like fixing something, and he went to the back to drop something off, and it was like weeks and before any of this ever happened. So I did see him at least that one occasion where he seemed to be doing some kind of service for her, and he just was dropping something off from the back door, and one would walk up, but never directly, just randomly from somewhere go to her back door. No.
Okay. Do you think it's possible that it was somebody besides Eric Maxwell that murdered Lauren?
I have no reason to suspect otherwise because I never saw anybody. Oh my gosh. Child.
Sorry.
We're almost done, I promise.
Oh, no, you're good.
Go.
My answer would be anything is possible. It could have been someone she knew. It could be some random person that just happened to figure out that the door was unlocked and was able to get in. I mean,
she's a very friendly person that she had a lot of people, I think, acquaintances. Mm-hmm. Like I said, she had a healthy history of boyfriends. Never saw all of them. And I mean, there's always that possibility, but the fact for me of the build up of that week or two leading to that is,
lots of arguing, lots of back and forth, and it wasn't necessarily from my point of view, it was more or less Eric and Ashley were arguing, bickering, fighting like couples do, and Lauren was getting in the middle of it, whether it be she was just trying to defend her or trying to put her try to get her, like, get them to like compromise or whatever it was. That's what I was seeing. So, but to go back, it could be anybody.
Well, and I know there was definitely the subject of Eric was beating Ashley, mm-hmm. and that was something that Jessica, I believe, kind of put a bookmark in subject wise for me because she brought it up where I was like, oh, like that's happening, and she's like, oh yeah, like she, like prior to this, apparently, Lauren was very upset that Ashley had been hurt that way, and she confronted Eric about it. Of course, this is not my take on it; it's someone else telling me. But that to me was like, well, that right there, like essentially meant that Lauren was getting in the middle of whatever mm-hmm. relationship Ashley and Eric had, and that there was a point in time where Ashley was getting so frustrated or fed up with Eric that she threatened to just leave him and go live with Lauren, and that was kind of the fuel to that, where I think Eric had a lot to lose, because honestly he didn't work, he didn't, he provided, I think, where he could. I mean, in the sense of as least effort as possible, and because I saw him do work in physical labor, but it was just kind of, on his terms, and that kind of thing.
Did you guys ever So in Chasen, we talked about this yesterday. It's different if somebody lives in a single family residence on a 10-acre tract of land. They got no neighbors in sight, right? Did you guys ever wonder, because the one question I had going through this whole thing was how you guys, she lived in a duplex. I mean, you woke up to the smell of smoke, right? So that's saying, hey, probably a relative, and your wife's 8.5 months pregnant, so that kind of protector mode kicks in for sure.
Yeah.
She got stabbed 18 times and nobody ever heard anything. And it doesn't even have to be connecting. I mean, logically, I would think that if somebody's stabbed 18 times, they're quite literally screaming for their life. I mean, you could have heard it 5 doors down.
Right.
So was it, there was some information that looked like Lauren had perhaps, I don't know if she was on probation. There was some mention that she had a device on her car that she had to blow into to start the car. Mm-hmm. And so that typically would be consistent with somebody who's been arrested for a driving offense related to alcohol, whether it's DWI or one of the others that it could be. Was it common for her did you guys ever see her just get passed out drunk? Was that common, or did you ever even see that?
No. I see her outside talking drunk, but still collected enough. But there were that week leading up, it was they basically essentially they were that week's leading up, there was a lot of drinking. So there was around holidays, those kind of things were common, but I think that's why that week was so crazy is because I saw her do worse and worse things as that week progressed. Go drunk, she was drunk in the middle of the day, and she would go to that Quick Trip. And I was pretty sure she was drunk when she went and did that. And but she had people, driving her there. But other than that, that was kind of the extent.
Yeah. So that's kind of answers one question, because on July 3rd, it was reported that Lauren, Eric, and Ashley all went to the Quick Trip, I believe in Decatur, and they bought beer and food. They used Lauren's card, but Eric and Ashley went inside and bought it. So that may kind of make sense and add up. Perhaps that's why that happened. I think that's kind of it. Do you guys have any questions? Anything of the sorts?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think always tracks my mind is the whole subject of how could we not have heard anything? I think that's the biggest question of me and Helen. We rack our brains. I mean, we were pretty sound sleepers, but honestly, not that bad. And even to this day, we know that if you were to just make a physical contact with that wall, I mean, they made those soundproofing walls.
I still don't understand it.
Well, and I mean, there were only a few times if she was hanging a picture, with putting a tack up or something, we could hear that a mile away. But I think either she had been silenced in the living room because he set the couch on fire, and then put onto her bed to be burned the rest of the way. Because I don't know, I feel like that might have been conclusion. But other than that, I mean, I was like this far from getting cameras installed because I was getting that feeling, for the most part. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing of all is we just we did not hear. I mean, she was literally 10 inches from us when she was set on fire, and believe me, it definitely keeps us thinking.
I mean, because my understanding would be that the duplexes are literally just carbon copies, but split this way. So, like, if our bedroom is here, the bedroom, assuming to be hers, and maybe it wasn't, would be that one, and then so on and so forth.
But the questions, honestly, is was there anybody else that's reached out to even add any light to anything to the investigation?
So you guys haven't heard anything from Wise County Sheriff's Office, Texas Rangers?
Nothing.
No, we wrote a victim statement, and I can't remember when we did that, but we did write a victim statement each and then sent it in. And that's the last thing that I have even received or heard of or have been contacted about.
Okay. I think that'll do it. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I know how. Well, hold on. I do have two other. I'm scrolling back through all these notes. It's like we have like 30 pages, so everything keeps popping out at me. Do you know? Did investigators on or about July 8th? It was mentioned that they found a pair of black latex gloves approximately 200 to 250 yards from the crime scene. Do you guys know anything about that?
No.
Lastly, do you guys know anybody that went by the name of Saleem, Saleem?
No.
Okay, I think that'll do it. Like I said, I appreciate your guys' time. If anything else pops into your mind, by all means, reach out to me.
This is a Stolen Water Media production.